Let's talk a bit about books, because you've written a dozen, 15, 12, I can't remember how many books you've...
35.
Well, let's not even go there. You make me feel sad. The one that I think, if I'm right, that really put you on the map here was this one. You know, the what got you here won't get you there. How did that kind of come about? I'm really intrigued by this title.
That is by far my most popular book. So that book has sold about 1 million copies. The other 34 have sold about 1 million copies. The history of that book is quite interesting. Peter Drucker, I was on the board of the Peter Drucker Foundation for 10 years, had the privilege of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker said we spend a lot of time teaching leaders what to do. We don't spend enough time teaching leaders what to stop. He said half the leaders I meet, they don't need to learn what to do, they need to learn what to stop. That one comment led to the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Then the genesis of the book is the New Yorker magazine wrote the story of my life. And what happened is a man named Mark Ryder read it, and he called me, and he said, I've read everything you've ever written. The New Yorker magazine story about you is better than anything you've ever written by far. I said, well, I'm hardly ashamed of this. I'm not a writer for the New Yorker magazine. You know, I have a day job, and the fact that some woman at the New Yorker magazine can write better than me is hardly something to be ashamed of. He said, why don't we write a book that sounds like that New Yorker magazine profile? I said, well, if we can do it, let's try it. So this book is by far better written than my other books. Why? I didn't write it. I talk, he writes, I talk, he writes, I edit. So I think the key to writing a New York Times bestselling book is find someone who can write and have them write the book for you. So that's kind of the key. And my other book, Mojo, which is also a New York Times bestseller, he also did that book with me. And my new book, Triggers, he's doing with me.
Yeah.
So he's a wonderful guy, great partner.
Yes.
So we have a good working relationship.
So for men and women in the corporate world, and I'm also interested in entrepreneurs, people who own and run their own businesses, what's the message from what got you here won't get you there? And maybe we could look at those two communities differently, if there is a difference in your mind.
Well, in the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, I talk about the challenges and pitfalls that come with success. Everyone I coach is a mega successful person. So I talk about not the blessings of success sometimes, but the curses of success. Why it's hard for successful people to hear the truth, why we get lost in our egos when we become successful. And I talk about classic problems of success. Then I talk about how to get better. Process of asking for input and listening and follow-up and
How am I doing?
How am I doing? And it's built on research involving tens of thousands of people from around the world. So the book not only talks about why successful people have challenges, it talks about helping them get better. My coaching people are largely large business executives. However, the concepts of the book work very well with entrepreneurial leaders. Why? They're incredibly ego involved in what they're doing. Even more so perhaps than corporate CEOs. Sometimes it has their name on the door. So the issues of relationships are very important, especially in a family business. And a lot of entrepreneurial businesses are indeed family businesses. So the book works very well in an entrepreneurial or a family business kind of setting.
If you could pick one of the dozens of amazing ideas, a quick 2 cents practical piece of advice, okay, what got you here won't get you there. It's almost a mindset message. It's all buried there in the title. But how do you overcome that sense that I'm already successful, so I know all the rituals and routines, the things that made me successful in the past are going to make me successful in the future. So what do I need to do to kind of break that mindset, and what do I need to do, what do I need to implement after that?
Successful people fall into something called the superstition trap, which you just described. I am successful, I behave this way, therefore I must be successful because I behave this way. Wrong. Everyone I work with, you are successful, you do behave this way, you're successful because they're doing many things right, and in spite of doing some things that make no sense. And everyone has something on the in spite of list. Then number two, how do you get better? Well, what I teach people is how to ask for input from everyone around them, how to listen in a non-defensive way, to think about what people tell them, and then I talk about how to respond to 360-degree feedback. It's something I've been working on for 30 years. And then involve the people around them, how to change, and then how to follow up, and I actually measure long-term positive change in behavior. So in my coaching, I don't get paid if my clients don't get better, and better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by everyone around them.
Yes.
So this is reasonably well thought out.
Yes.
And I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics, so I'm very big in measuring things.
Yes.
I believe if you don't measure it, how do you know it works?
For sure.
So I'm very, very big in measuring things.
Yes.
So I talk about how to use this to get better.
You talk about successful people a lot, and it seems to me that there's something in a lot of what you write about the self and ego. And there's something too about significance and making a difference, and that's something that I'm particularly interested in. What do you see as folks who are already successful? What do you see as, do you see folks talking about, thinking about what they're going to leave behind and their legacy as well?
You see that more at the end of people's career, obviously, than you do at the beginning. When you're 28 years old, it's probably not the first thing on your mind.
Yes.
When you're 68 years old, it seems pretty important. So the further down the road you get in your career, the more you think about it. I think it's very important from a couple of dimensions. One, it's important from the dimension of what do you leave, but two, though, where you are. In my book, Mojo, I talk a lot about happiness and meaning and the importance of, number one, doing what you want to do in terms of you enjoy the process, it makes you happy, and the second, doing what is meaningful for you. And the reality is nobody can define happiness for you but you, and nobody can define meaning for you but you. Those have to come from your heart. So it's as we wander through life, challenging ourselves. How can I do what I love doing, and at the same time, how can I do what I consider to be meaningful and important?
I love the subtitle, how to get it or how to get it back. Sometimes it seems to me it's not about inspiring ourselves, but maybe about re-inspiring ourselves.
Yeah, Mojo is a function of, number one, the person. Some people tend to have more than others. Two, the activity. Some people with one activity might have very high amounts of mojo, another activity other, and the third is time. Yeah. And sometimes what happens is you begin a project with a lot of enthusiasm, interest, and in mojo is that positive spirit of what you're doing that radiates from the inside and shows on the outside. Well, what happens is sometimes you start with that, but then you get tired, you burn out, and you lose some of that fire and drive. Not always. Sometimes it keeps going up and up and up. So it really depends on the individual.
For me, my interpretation is the challenge is very much about, to some extent, self-motivation. And you can see folks in the corporate world, they've got their career trajectory ahead of them. I might think that that's fairly easy to think about. You can see the runway, but not for entrepreneurs. I wonder if you've got a sense that there's a difference there, or what do you say?
Well, entrepreneurs tend to be very high in the mojo score. They tend to be very, very big on that, positive spirit of what you're doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. They typically create their own jobs. One challenge entrepreneurs have is, it's called the fundamental attribution error, that we look at others and we tend to want to think they're going to be us. And then we're kind of shocked or disappointed when we find out, no, they're not really us. So, entrepreneurs, given their ownership level and having the name on the door, often are highly motivated and enthused and usually very bright, creative people. It's hard for them to recognize everyone around them is not exactly like they are.
And that's a real challenge for multi-generation businesses. You're trying to pass the business on to your son or daughter.
Very tough.
And then we know that second, third generation, that transition is
third generation is very tough.
How do you deal with those successful 68-year-old CEOs who've got young sons, daughters coming in 20, 30 something? They don't kind of fit dad's or mom's idea of what the future is. They're not me.
Part of it is I wouldn't feel a need to have to put the kid in the position. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with starting a business and selling it. And in some cases, the third generation just doesn't want to run the business anymore. And that doesn't mean they're immoral, illegal, or unethical. I work a lot for Walmart. And the second generation doesn't even run the business. They manage the business in a sense. They're owners, but they don't manage the operations of the business. They don't work in the business on a day-to-day basis. That's okay. They did a pretty good job of letting go. So I think it's not mandatory that the CEO be a member of the family. I think the important point is give them a chance. Let me tell you what a lot of entrepreneurs do wrong. They want their family members to be in the business. And they go home at night when the kid is little, and they complain all the time about how hard they work, how tough it is. The kid is listening to this going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be you. Well, if you want the kid to run the business, when you come home, I love this business, I'm upbeat, it's enthusiastic, I had a great day, I'm positive, there's a much higher chance the kid is going to work in the business than this is awful, I have to work so hard, I put in 80 hours a week, I'm so tired, I'm miserable. And the kid's going, why am I going to do that, right? I don't want to be you. So a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about the message they send to their family members every day when they go home.
Yeah.
And so if you really want the kid to run the business, you got to be thinking about, what message am I giving to this kid? Am I giving the kid a message that he would want to run the business? And a lot of times, intellectually, they want the kid to run the business. The message they give the kid is antithetical to their goal.
It's kind of the paradox of success in a way, because you work real hard to build a business, have a career, whatever it might be, and then and I'm working with one family where the second generation daughter remembers a story from her youth. You know, somebody said, you know, where's your dad? You know, and she said, he lives on a plane.